Every year, backpacking companies release a lot of gear. On this episode, I'm going to break down my favorite and least favorite pieces of gear from 2023. First off, we're going to start off with this. This is the Ultimate Direction 40 backpack. This is my favorite backpack I've ever used. It has a running style vest harness, which allows me to fast pack and run out of trails, usually downhill. Makes more sense that way. It's 40-liter backpack. Tons of features, tons of buckles and straps. It only comes in just over 1.6 to 1.7 pounds. It's a fantastic pack. I've got a full video on this. Definitely check this one out. Next up, we have the Dan Durston X-Mid 1. Whether you're getting the X-Mid Pro, Pro 2, Pro 2 Plus, any of the ones, they're basically all set up the same way. They have similar design, just some smaller details that are changed throughout the tents or the material. But this is a great tent. It handles wind excellent. It's got huge vestibules. It's a super lightweight tent, under 2 pounds. Sets up with just 4 stakes, and it can be set up if it's raining, keeping the inside dry. Now, if we go inside the tent, my first piece of gear that I'm just not too happy with is this. It's the Big Agnes Kings Canyon UL quilt. Well, this is a very lightweight quilt. It's not as warm as advertised. This is advertised at 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 degrees Celsius, but it really doesn't perform at that level. I froze my butt off sleeping in the Canadian Rockies down at that exact about 4 degrees or 43 degrees Fahrenheit, and I froze twice using this quilt. While it is lightweight at only 1 pound and it feels nice, the material's nice, it does come with some pad clips that you can basically put a sticky on the back of your sleeping pad to clip it to. I find it was drafty and it was just not rated for what it stated it's rated at, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. I would consider this a one-season quilt if it's in the heart of summer, July, August, when it's really hot. That's when I'm going to be using this, but this is definitely not a 3-season quilt for me. I was very disappointed on how little heat it actually kept. The next piece of gear I was disappointed with is this Near Zero pillow. It is just so bouncy. The baffles on here don't really seem to do anything. It feels like you're sleeping on a balloon. Your head's just bouncing, and it doesn't matter if you use the valve on it to reduce some air, then it's just like got a deflated balloon. It's just the most uncomfortable pillow ever, and it doesn't have any sort of material on it to make it kind of stick or stay in place, and there's no pad strap. So this one is definitely a fail as well. Now, what isn't a fail is this pillow from Hiknature. It's basically like the Trekology Aloof 2.0 pillow. It's got a pad strap on the back, keeps it attached. It's got this valve that's easy to blow up and deflate, but it also has this soft fabric on top. So for right now, for air pillows, I think this one is the king. Although there are better pillows like the Nemo Philo, they're much more expensive. This is a budget pillow that is quite comfortable for those of you who just want to get out into the backcountry once or twice, 3 times a year. This is the pillow I'm using right now because it's nice and light and just more comfortable than the Trekology one. Another part of my sleep system that I was just not impressed with is the Climate Static V. Now, I've previously given this a good review, and it's a light pad. It weighs 1.3 pounds. It packs down really small. The reason why it's getting a thumbs down here is because it turns out the R rating on this of 4.4, which comes from Climate, is actually wrong. It's been independently tested at an R value of 1.8 or 1.9. So it's basically half of what it was rated for. And using that in the Canadian Rockies, it just wasn't a good pad. It was too cold. Now, a new piece of gear that I haven't used a lot, but my first impressions of it are, it's excellent, this is the Nemo Tensor Extreme, a pad with an R value of 8.5, making it the highest R value pad on the market. It just came out recently. I've had a few chances to test this thing out, and it's fantastic. There's 4 sheets of Mylar reflective film inside. It feels like when you're sleeping on it, your heat gets collected. It's like you're sleeping in a pool of your own heat. I got the delivery for this pretty late at night, and the first thing I did is pull it out of the box, throw it on the grass outside, and lay down on it in my front yard. I kid you not, I started to fall asleep outside at freezing. It was 0 degrees Celsius when I was testing this, with no sleeping bag, just wearing my clothes I was wearing in the house. No jacket, nothing. That's how warm this thing felt. Now, granted, the top of my skin and stuff was getting a little chilly. Legitimately feels like there's just a pool of heat that kind of collects on it. So that's my initial impressions on this. Stay tuned for a full first look video on this, as well as a full comprehensive video once I properly test it out in some cold conditions. The next piece of gear that's an absolute winner is this merino wool buff. I had been using buffs like this, which are made of polyester, basically plastic. While this material is fine for most applications, it dawned on me that you shouldn't be putting this right over your mouth where you're breathing all day. You know, There's already enough things in this world that cause disease, and this is one thing that had just dawned on me and it had been bothering me ever since, because you can see all the tiny microfibers. Now this is merino wool, so this is a natural fiber which will break down going into my system. Plastic though, not so much. I have a full video breaking down this topic, but I basically busted out my macro camera to show all the microfibers on here that are microplastics that'll eventually end up in your lungs. Having this over your mouth for hours and hours while you're hiking, it just makes sense to get one like this. One other benefit, this is a long one, which allows you to put it over your head and use it as a neck gaiter. You can use it to cover your face. You can also use it to make a toque like this, twirl it, fold it back on itself, and create a toque out of it with no hole in the top. The next piece of gear that's a winner is this fire beaner. I like to carry a carabiner. Often I'm hooking my drone and sometimes other pieces of gear. If I have to take pieces of gear from my friends, their tent, etc., I always just have this on hand. But this has a flint on it. You can use that to start your stove really easily. Ooh. The next piece of gear here, the Black Diamond Distance Carbon FLZ, is a letdown. This is actually a big letdown. This is a carbon trekking pole. Let me show you what's the letdown of this. It's a folding trekking pole, pretty light, weighs about 185 grams. And there's a newer version of it that weighs slightly less, like 145 grams, but there's our problem right there. Nice and crunchy. So yeah, this broke. It's just, these are just not that strong. They're not that durable. Yeah, it broke. That's basically all it is to it. Now on the flip side, a piece of gear I'm really impressed with is this. This is the Fizzin Compact aluminum trekking pole. So now this weighs less than that one, 158 grams. Now if I did have the newest Black Diamond one, it would weigh 10 grams less, but basically this is a thicker pole. The aluminum is just stronger. It's just a more durable thing than the carbon fiber. I beat up this pole so much this year. If I take these bushwhacking, I've had times when I've fallen through dead trees that have rotted out and this thing was flexing and didn't break. I'm so impressed with these things. They're light. The weight of 2 of these trekking poles weighs the same as the weight of one of my old Trekology poles. These are just fantastic poles. There's nothing else to say. And another trekking pole that should get an honorable mention here is this one from Olight. This one is the first, I think, and only trekking pole that has lights built in. There's a button on the top here. Push and hold it. Boom, now you can hike in the dark. These are basically just as bright as a headlamp, and you've got 2 of these, right? So on 2 trekking poles, you get so much light, it flares outwards, it doesn't blind you. Another piece of gear that's an absolute winner is this helmet from Petzl. This is the Sirocco. It's one of the lightest helmets on the market. I believe there's one other one that's like a few grams less, but it's a fantastic helmet. It's got protection for rockfall from above, because if you're scrambling like me, I'm not a rock climber, but for scrambling, this is where you want protection. So believe it or not, because there's a magnet in here, this allows you to attach this one-handed. Just like that. Amazing, right? And it looks pretty cool. Now, a piece of gear on the trail that isn't a winner is a full-size toothbrush. It takes a lot of space and it weighs a lot. What is a winner is this little guy. You can see the brush head is actually bigger and it's just got this little kind of thumb grip. That's a winner. Now, another thing that's a winner are toothpaste tabs. These little packets of toothpaste are not bad, but the thing is, I can't ever find these in fluoride free, where you can with these. The toothpaste tab is just this tiny little puck. You can bring just, a few of these for a whole backpacking trip. Well, it won't save you a ton of space compared to this. It does allow you to have a different variety of toothpaste, like fluoride free. And the final 2 pieces of gear, one winner, one loser, are whistles. Now this is a typical kind of whistle. It's a metal one, so it's got a bit more weight to it. It's got volume, 100 decibels, but why would you use this when you could use this thing? This here is the Hyper Whistle. This is the world's loudest whistle. As you can see, you blow on this end, and I'm barely blowing on it. It's got 3 tubes, so it's basically kind of like 3 whistles in one. This blows at 143 decibels. Just to give you context, a jet engine taking off is 130 decibels, and a rocket engine taking off is 180 decibels. So if you want some good bear protection, I'll do a full video on this and really try to show this thing in action, but the Hyper Whistle is an absolute winner. Hopefully this video gave you some ideas of gear to check out and some to avoid. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you out on the trail.